Hello, and welcome to the video. Today, I wanted to try something a little bit different. It's something that I've been thinking about for quite a while, and I just wanted to just jump right into it and see what I could do. Usually, whenever I paint my miniatures up, I display them out on a shelf somewhere or a curio cabinet. I have several that are filled with my miniatures. I like to display mine so that I can see them. I hate just packing them away and you forget about them for years. But what I wanted to do is actually try to do a display board for the Plague Marines that I'd recently painted up. I like the Plague Marines because they kind of give you a lot of freedom with with like decorations and such that you can put on the boards. So I thought it would be really fun to try to do a little display board for them. And I learned a lot of things on this, and I think I want to try it again at some point. But I want to show you guys and share with you what I did. And I hope that you'll get some inspiration from this as well. Even if you don't do it the same way that I did, maybe this will kind of inspire you to do a display board of your own or just kind of spark some ideas. So, with that, I want to show you how I got started with this and take you through the process. I hope that you enjoy.
All right, and here are my beautiful dirty boys. I was really happy with how they came out, so I kind of wanted to display them in a little bit better way than what I usually do. So I kept thinking maybe they would look cool on a display board. So first, I needed to plan on how I wanted to kind of lay them out or how I wanted them to stand. So first, I needed to do some complex calculations to determine what size I wanted the base to be. I think in a future projects I would have went a little bit bigger with this, but I decided to go on 5 inches by 8 inches. I thought that would give it a nice compact size that would still fit on my shelf and not take up a whole lot of room, but it would be fun to do a much larger one in the future. For projects like this, I like to use the pink XPS foam. I use this in making a lot of terrain historically and also some other dioramas for action figures. I have a large sheet of this, which is about 1 inch thick, and what I did once I cut out my 5 by 8 section, I just cut it in half so I had two half-inch thick sections, and I just kind of stacked them on top of each other because I wanted the guys in the back to be raised up a little bit so that you could see them better. So now I'm just placing the guys and trying to figure out how I want to space them on here. I'm not being real exact or measuring or anything here. I just figured just kind of a rough idea. Once I have them where I like them, I'm going to go in and cut the back off of the top sheets so that they square up. And now we're going to connect the two pieces. I like to use Gorilla Glue. I have used hot glue in the past, which is really fast. It's a good way to connect foam sometimes. But whatever you do, I would say do not use like Elmer's glue. It doesn't dry because it's water based and these foam sheets are going to stick together. You can pull them apart in a week or a month and it's still going to be wet. So don't use that glue. And once I put a little bit of glue on it, I put some weight on it and let it set overnight to dry. So the next day, with it all dried, I'm going to put my guys back on there and I'm going to take a pencil and just roughly go around the bases just so that I have an area that I can keep clean of debris as I'm gluing it down because I want these guys to sit flush with the foam. My original plan was to kind of have the soil or the mud that I'm going to put on here to kind of be raised up more. And I think if I did this again, I would find a way to sort of sink them down into the foam. I'm going to use a rock just to add a little bit of texture to it and to smooth out some of these sharp edges. Again, I'm kind of thinking of this more as like a plague landscape, and this is more of a hillside, more so than actual like shelving going up. Now I'm going to coat the foam with this mix of Mod Podge and black paint. As you can see, I've been using this container for quite a while, and I just kind of keep adding to it as it gets empty. But this, when it dries, it's going to give the foam a lot more stability, or more of like a protective layer over top of it so that it doesn't dent so easily. And this recipe, you can find it all over. Almost everybody that does terrain uses this same recipe, but it really does work well. It just takes a little bit of time to dry. Now, while it's still wet, I decided to add a little bit of grit and gravel that I use on my bases. I'm not sure if this was the right thing to do, but I thought that it would give it a good chance to really soak in and stick well since this is already Mod Podge. As it's drying, it'll kind of cement these pieces in. Had I to do it over again, I'm not sure that I would have done this. I might have just come back with clear glue and put this on after this part had dried. I think I would have been able to control it a little bit better. But anyway, I did get some in the circles, and all I did was take a brush and just clean those out then. So while that's drying, I'm going to start sculpting some of the decorations, and I'm going to use Milliput. Now you could use green stuff or air dry clay, but I had a big chunk of Milliput left. So what I'm thinking is that since this is going to be a plague planet, I'm thinking that there's going to be bunches of tentacles and vines everywhere. I also thought about like these pus bubbles or egg sacs. And also, I wanted to do this weird, like almost like fleshy mound where maybe insects were crawling out of. It really puts me in mind of one of those frogs that has the babies on its back. It's a thing of nightmares. I am certainly not an expert sculptor, but I just kind of had fun and just kind of let my imagination go and tried different things. I also found some old bits to use, like this bone and this dead guy's head. Once everything's all dry, I'm going to come in with some old paint. I just use cheap apple barrel paint whenever I'm doing terrain like this. And I'm just going to do a heavy dry brush of brown to start off with. I wanted this to be nice and muddy looking because our boys didn't get dirty walking in a nice grassy field. I'm just going to add a little bit of white to the brown each time just to bring up the highlights a little bit more. This will make it so that it doesn't look so uniform brown and add a little bit more interest to the piece. Here I'm just going to use a bit of hot glue to start attaching some of these pieces. And as you can see, I also primed the pieces. I didn't go overboard with it because I knew that they were going to be on the ground, but I did a little bit so that the paint would stick to it. To enhance the mud look, I'm using this earth texture. This stuff here kind of gives it a wet, earthy look to it. I wish I would have had something that was more mud, but you know, as I usually say, I work with what I got, and this is what I had on hand at the time. I kind of wish that I would have used this a little bit more, but I made sure to go into the seam here where the two pieces join together and really fill that in quite well so that it doesn't show. I also used this to hide like the base of the tentacles and to go up and around some of the other edges so that they blended more in with the diorama. Since this is a plague area and it's corrupted, I thought that we needed a little bit of slime coming up out of the ground. So what I did was I tried to mix a little bit of Elmer's glue or PVA glue in with this lime green. I thought maybe if I could put it on heavy enough that it would kind of look like pools of green slime or mucus. Had I to do it over again, or if I had some available, I probably would have went with resin. I think I would have got much better results. But I wanted to try this out to see if it works. And that's one thing with these projects is it was a learning process. I've never done this before, so next time I'll know how to do this a little bit better and I can make some improvements. But for just having this on hand, I think that the results they came out pretty well. Now, to paint up the rest of the decorations on this display, I kind of used a variety of paints. I went with some speed paints, I went with some just traditional paints, I used a little bit of dry brushing, I just kind of was all over the place. So I painted up most of the tentacles in like a purple or pinkish flesh color. I painted some of the little worms yellow. The egg sacs I went with a green because I didn't know if they were eggs or maybe they were like pus bubbles. And then the little fleshy thing at the bottom, I painted the holes red and then painted the over top of it a flesh color. But yeah, you can just use your imagination and just go kind of crazy with the painting. This is a chaos realm. There's no right or wrong. You can use anything that you like. Once it all dried, I came in with some gloss varnish and I put this on the slime pools. I put it on the egg sacs and some of the tentacles just to give it a little bit of a shine, and this will make it stand out a little bit more as the light reflects off of it. So with that, I'm going to call this board done. I'm pretty happy with how it came out. There's definitely a lot of things that I might have done differently, or I will do differently in the future when I make other display boards. I'm really happy with the gloss varnish. I think it makes things look kind of wet and gross looking. Had I to do it over, I would have used a different texture that was actually mud and maybe made everything a little more wet looking. I also might have done more green, like a dry brush over this of green, just to match more of a Nurgle color. And I might do that at some point. But here are the boys. They look really happy. They got a nice, muddy, dirty place to hang out. And I like how the guys in the back are raised up a little bit more so that they're easier to see. When they're all flat on one level, they're just a little more difficult to see. And I think that they're going to look really cool on the shelf. So I hope that this video inspired you to maybe display your miniatures in a different way. You put a lot of time into painting your miniatures, so I think it's cool to show them off and give them a nice display. So I want to say thanks for watching. I hope that this video has inspired you to maybe come up with a display board of your own and be creative. There's a lot of different ideas that I have for future builds, so I'm looking forward to sharing those with you. Again, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.